making them the largest freshwater reserves on the planet. Glaciers hold 75% of the fresh water on Earth, making them the largest freshwater reserves on the planet. They cover about 10% of the Earth's surface today. During the last ice age, glaciers covered about 32% of the total land area of the planet. Glaciers can be divided into two categories. The first are alpine glaciers, which form on the sides of mountains and move slowly down valleys. The second type is made up of large ice sheets, or glaciers, that cover large areas. The Lambert Glacier, located in Antarctica, is the largest glacier to exist. It's about 100 kilometers wide, 400 kilometers long, and 2.5 kilometers deep. Greenland and Antarctica, which have the biggest ice sheets on Earth, make up more than 99% of the world's glacial ice. But what would happen if this huge amount of glaciers melted all at once? What would happen to all the water? What would happen to the seas and oceans? Would fresh water and salt water mix? In this video, you will learn what would happen if all the glaciers were gathered in one place, what parts of the land would melt if all the glaciers melted, what would happen to Antarctica, and what would happen to the flora and fauna. You will also explore how the large melt could alter the length of the day. Here are a few interesting facts about what would happen if all the glaciers melted. We think that there are between 25 and 30 million cubic kilometers of ice on our planet. Even those with strong imaginations find it difficult to imagine what it looks like. Try to imagine that a 1 kilometer thick ice sheet would be larger in size than all of North America if all glaciers were concentrated in one place. Now, let's think about what will happen if all that ice melts. The melting wouldn't happen overnight, of course. But the new information we're about to give you is very amazing in a bad way. In 2019, the United Nations Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change published a scientific report about the ocean and the cryosphere. The study showed that even small glaciers can add up to almost as much ice as Greenland. For example, between 2006 and 2015, Greenland lost about 280 billion tons of ice each year, while the remaining glaciers lost 220 billion tons. In comparison, Antarctica only lost 155 billion tons of ice during that time. In the last few years, the average rate of rise of the ocean's surface was 3.6 millimeters per year. Despite the fact that it may seem insignificant, changes in the climate can happen quickly and cumulatively. The prediction is that the rate of glaciers melting will likely increase and speed up. NASA also made the prediction that the sea level will rise by 90 centimeters in the near future. Now, let's imagine that all glaciers melted overnight. Such a scenario is predicted by scientists at the University of California, Irvine, for the distant future. They said that the sea level will rise by 7.4 meters if all the Greenland glaciers melt. The water level will rise by 58 meters if Antarctica melts. If all the glaciers on the planet melted, the water level would rise by 65 meters. Which parts of the land will remain? According to climate change models, all of the continent's coastal areas will be covered by water. In one way or another, it will dramatically change the shape of continents as huge amounts of land get submerged. For example, Florida will disappear, and the Netherlands, which has been fighting hard for decades to keep the sea from getting closer, will finally lose this fight. Denmark and most of Northern Europe will have the same end. St. Petersburg will be underwater, and Venice will finally go down too. A real sea will replace the Caspian Sea. Due to the fact that it is no longer linked to the ocean, it is no longer even in the form of a sea but rather a huge lake. After all the glaciers melt, the Black Sea will cover the Caucasus to the east and make a new Bosporus to join to the ocean. It will almost double in size. China will have big storms because some of its land is being taken over by water. Vietnam and the Philippines will have water cover their land. The situation will be bad for both countries. In South America, significant changes will take place. Because a huge gulf has formed in its place, the Amazon River in Brazil will cease to exist. It will change the continent's shape in a big way. The Paraná and Uruguay rivers in the southern part of the continent will have the same thing happen to them. They'll turn into a bay, and the city of Buenos Aires and lands at least 100 kilometers deep into the continent will disappear. In comparison to other continents, Africa will lose the least amount of land. But rising sea levels will also increase air temperature and make life impossible in most parts of Africa. Egypt, Alexandria, and Cairo will also be covered in water from the Mediterranean Sea's expansion. The big water in Australia will form an inland sea as a result of the melting of ice and glaciers, and most of the narrow coastal zone where many Australians live will disappear underwater. What's going to happen with Antarctica? What might we see in its place? Contrary to some predictions, it won't be impossible to tell where the continents are. A time traveler from the future will be able to look at the new maps of the Earth and see the shapes of Australia, both Americas and Africa. But he or she will be surprised and confused by Antarctica, or what he or she sees there instead of its place. The way Antarctica looks to us is just a fantasy made by the way the weather is right now. In fact, if we remove all the ice from Antarctica and leave only the ocean, we will see a collection of big and small islands, even at the current ocean level. When all the ice caps melt, it will be covered by water or turn into a big group of islands. What will happen to the sea, flora, and fauna? Almost all glaciers are made of silt, and they hold a lot of fresh water, billions and billions of tons of it. All of the melted water will naturally reduce the salty ocean water, making it less salty. A dramatic ecological disaster will result from desalination in turn. The delicate ecological balance will be upset as a result of the extinction of some oceanic flora and fauna species. Some plant and animal species will go extinct, while others will suddenly and dramatically increase in number. It could start a big chain reaction that would destroy the ocean and land environments around the world. As ocean water becomes less salty, groundwater will become more salty. When the ocean level rises a lot, salty water will go deep into the groundwater. This will make the soil more salty and make it hard to water fields and grow most food items on that land. If the amount of salt in the ocean goes down, the currents will slow down or even stop. For example, the Gulf Stream would cease to exist, warming the air around northern Europe. With global warming, the British Islands wouldn't be as vulnerable to cold weather, but there could be other, very bad effects. And of course, melting glaciers have other effects that aren't as bad. You should know that ice has been building up for hundreds of thousands of years, if not millions. It's no surprise that volcanoes and other disasters have released tons of toxins into glaciers. When they melt, all of the toxins will get into the ocean and air, which is bad for both. There are also other dangerous things that are frozen and kept in the ground. Scientists warn about potentially dangerous chemical compounds, dormant old viruses and bacteria that we have no immunity to, and even nuclear waste dumps that could have been abandoned and destroyed in the chaos of a global disaster. What will happen with the weather as a whole? On a planet scale, glacial melting cannot occur in isolation from other processes. There are dramatic reasons and tragic results of the phenomenon. Global warming will have many effects on ecosystems, as well as on human health, employment, food security, water supply, and economic growth. As it speeds up and more water moves onto the land, more places along the coast become uninhabitable. A group of scientists made up of anthropologists, ecologists, and experts on climate change put together a long report after doing a lot of research, modeling, and investigation on world climate change. The world paid attention to the study, Future of the Human Climate Niche, which was published in the Journal of the National Academy of Sciences, PNAS. It showed some pretty sad and scary facts. Predictions show that by 2070, the area of our planet with an average annual temperature over 29 degrees will grow from 0.8% to 19%. As the temperature rises, the effects are expected to sharply increase. Also, we want to tell you that the average temperature in the Sahara Desert is 29 degrees Celsius. Temperatures will rise not only in the desert region that is currently uninhabited, but also in the areas with the most people and the highest birth rates on the planet. Large parts of South America, India, Africa, Northern Australia, and Southeast Asia could become extremely hot and hostile, making them uninhabitable. It might happen before all of the glaciers melt.